Hello, boys and girls. I'm Mrs. Owenby. I teach 5th grade reading at Shannon Elementary. Hey, Hornets. I'm so glad you're joining me for this lesson today. We're going to be reading, talking about, and especially writing about a text from the Sleuth magazines that you may have used at school. We're going to be reading a text called Helping Hands. It's the same text that we looked at last week. If you have not read that text, it's fine. We're going to be rereading it today. If you have read the text and done the activities with us last week, it's going to be fine. It's always a good practice to reread quality text. Plus, we're reading for a different purpose today. Today, we're going to be reading to gather evidence to write and analyze an opinion paragraph using this text. We're going to go ahead and get started. There's a few things that I want us to look at before we start working. We're going to look at a few tools for success so that you can get the most out of this video and this lesson. First of all, there's a few materials that it would be nice if you had. One of them is the Helping Hands text from the April 20th packet or download. Also, it would be nice if you had a copy of the Exemplar and Success Criteria from the April 27th packet or download. The last thing that you need are some writing tools. A pen, a pencil, a highlighter, different color markers, whatever, but we will be marking on our text a little bit. These other tips are helpful for making the video work. First of all, you could read the text first. Pause the video, read the text, see if there's any difficult vocabulary, make sure that you understand the main idea of the text, and then join us. If at any point in the video you can't hear me, you can hit this button on the YouTube video or the KCS streaming, and it will show my words at the bottom of the screen. If I am speaking too fast or you're having trouble understanding me, you can hit this button and it will change the playback speed in the settings. If during this video you need to pause, you may need a little bit more time to read or think about an answer or find evidence, hit this button and then join us when you're ready. You can also watch this video with someone in your home. At school, we often interact with partners as we read to share our thoughts and our thoughts about our reading. You could do the same thing if you have someone that could watch with you at home. Finally, you could summarize the information in the video. Once you're finished watching the video, take a few minutes to write down the main points. You could talk about the main points with someone. You can think about the main points of the video just to make sure that you really understood what you watched before you start to do the extension activities. As I mentioned, the text that we're going to read comes from the Sleuth magazine. Sleuth is another word for a detective. Detective, we need to read like detectives when we're reading, but we're not talking about a detective that solves mysteries. We're actually just wanting to read really closely in the text to make sure that we get the most out of that text. Would you follow along with me as I read the introduction to the Sleuth magazine? From the Super Sleuths, subject mysteries. Dear Junior Sleuthhound, mysteries are all around. There could be a mystery on your playground. There could be a mystery in a faraway land. There could be mysteries between the pages of this book. So what do you do to solve a mystery? Become a sleuthhound. Look for clues. Ask interesting questions. Then put all the pieces together and prove your answers. This book gives you a chance to practice skills that sleuths use. As you read this book, use the Super Sleuth steps to find answers to some really big questions. Good luck. Pay attention to that very last sentence. Use the Super Sleuth steps to find answers. If we're going to use the steps, we need to make sure we understand them. So let's look at these steps. The first one, look for clues. We need to look for clues in the text as well as the pictures. Sometimes these clues will give us the exact answer we need. Sometimes it will just give us a clue and we've got to think a little bit deeper and make an inference about that clue. Our second sleuth tip is ask questions. As you're reading, you may come across something you don't understand. You may come across something that you're interested in and you want more information about. So you might just take a minute to think about those questions, jot those questions down so you can look at them later, or ask someone those questions while you're working on it. These last two steps go together. Make your case and prove it. We're really going to focus on those two today because they involve developing your opinion and then using text evidence to back up or prove your opinion. Even if you have not read the text that we're going to be reading today, you have read texts that are similar. In Unit 4 of Reading Street, all of the stories had to do with adapting. The story that we're going to read today from the Sleuth magazine also has to do with adapting. Do you remember what adapting means? That's right, adapting means changing. We read the story Westlandia in Unit 4, where Wesley had to adapt to difficult situations. He was bullied, it was almost summertime, and he had all this time on his hands that he needed to fill in some way. He adapted to those difficult situations, first of all, by making inventions to protect himself against his bullies, and then he created this entire civilization with all these inventions to pass his summer. We also read the nonfiction text, Exploding Ants. We looked at how animals adapt to survive. Those animals did some really disgusting things to find food, find shelter, and protect themselves. The story that we're going to read today is similar to Westlandia in that people have to adapt to a difficult situation. But this text also has to do with animals adapting. Though they're not adapting to survive themselves, their adaptations are a little different. So we'll have to read to figure out what we mean by that. We're going to be using these sleuth tips as we read today. For those of you who were with us last week and you read the text and you did the activities with us, one of the possible activities was this make your case writing prompt. We're going to be really focusing on that writing prompt for this lesson today. So let's read that prompt to make sure we're all really clear on what we're doing. Do you think capuchin monkeys make better service animals than dogs? Why or why not? Cite 3 reasons to support your argument. When I read that prompt, there's one word that kind of jumps out to me that I need to make sure I understand, and that word is service animals. Some of you may already know what that means. If you don't, though, we really need to redefine that out because you're going to need to understand that in order to answer this prompt. I also know from this prompt that my opinion choices are capuchin monkeys or dogs. So I really need to focus on those 2 animals. The prompt also says that I have to explain my opinion with 3 reasons. So as we read, we're going to be deciding our opinion. We're also going to be gathering evidence from the text to support that opinion. As I mentioned, the text we're reading is called Helping Hands. This first section has 2 paragraphs, and I'm going to label them so that we can kind of keep track and follow along. The first 2 paragraphs here are really important because they mention all of those important words that we just looked at in the prompt: service animals, capuchin monkeys, and dogs. In fact, I want you to pay attention right down here. There's a pronunciation guide. The author thought we might have a hard time pronouncing the word capuchin, so they put this pronunciation guide in there. Use it as often as you need to make sure you're pronouncing it correctly. We're going to read these first 2 paragraphs together. And as we do, I want you to really be paying attention to what you think service animals are. Read with me. Life is filled with unexpected events and challenges. Some of these seem like impossible obstacles, especially those that impair mental or physical abilities. Serious illnesses and spinal cord injuries that cause paralysis can change people's lives overnight. In times like these, people have learned to look to animals for assistance. Service dogs are willing and capable helpers. Besides providing companionship, they help people to see and to walk. They can even warn people if a seizure is coming. However, their ability to help is limited because they don't have hands. Well, some animals do. Hold on to your hat and meet the capuchin monkey. Based on what we read there, what do you think service animals are? Right here, it looks like these service animals are used for assistance, for helping people. Based on what we read here, why might people need these animals? Paragraph 1 mentions challenges or obstacles. There are things that happen to people that put them in a difficult situation that make them need these animals. So paragraph 1 gives us some examples of that, like impaired mental or physical abilities. The word impair means to hurt or damage. So if someone has impaired mental or physical abilities, that means their ability to think or their ability to move is hurt or damaged. That paragraph goes on to say that people might have a serious illness, or they might have an injury to their spinal cord, those bones along the middle of your back. If you have a spinal cord injury, that even causes another challenge called paralysis. Paralysis is when a part of your body doesn't move or work. So all of these challenges would put people in a difficult situation where they might need an animal to help them out. Paragraph 2 focuses on dogs. I know that dogs was one of the animals in my prompt, so I really want to look closely to see how dogs could be a good service animal. Look at paragraph 2. What evidence do we have that dogs are good service animals? It says that they can provide companionship. They can help people to see and walk. They can warn people if a seizure is coming. A seizure is one of those type of serious illnesses that was mentioned in paragraph 1. It affects the brain and it happens real suddenly. So if a dog could warn someone that a seizure was coming, then they could get help to make it not quite as severe or as bad. I have underlined all of these pieces of evidence because they all show how dogs could be good service animals. This paragraph, though, mentions one disadvantage of dogs. What is the disadvantage? That's right, dogs don't have hands. I have circled that one instead because that one is actually more of an advantage for monkeys. Monkeys do have hands. So if you're able to take notes on your text, you might want to do something similar where you're noting the dog evidence in one way and you're noting the monkey evidence in another way. Okay, let's look at our next section. This is paragraph 3. You're going to read paragraph 3 on your own, except there is one word that I want us to look at before you start reading. It might be a little bit of a challenge for you. The word is quadriplegic. Quadriplegic has the root quad, and it's related to the word paralysis that we read about in paragraph 1. Paralysis means a part of your body doesn't move or work. Quadriplegic means 4 parts of your body don't move or work. Both arms, both legs. The picture here shows a man in a wheelchair. He might be quadriplegic. His legs probably don't work since he's in a wheelchair. His arms may not either. If they don't, he would be an example of a quadriplegic. I want you to read paragraph 3 and I want you to see if you can find any evidence that a monkey would be a good service animal. It says right here that monkeys help people who were severely physically challenged, often quadriplegic. So that tells us that monkeys are really good with these severely physically challenged people. The text doesn't say why. Why do you think monkeys would be particularly helpful with these quadriplegics? That's right. It may very well have to do with what we read in paragraph 2 with monkeys having hands. Quadriplegics have hands that don't work. So the fact that monkeys have hands, they would be able to help them do some things that they can't do with their hands. Our next section has paragraph 4 and paragraph 5. Paragraph 4 has a stated main idea. The very first sentence tells us what this whole paragraph is going to be about. Read it with me. Capuchin monkeys make fantastic helpers. That sounds like I might really find some evidence that might work for my prompt here because it sounds like they're really talking about what's good about capuchin monkeys. Read paragraph 4 and see what evidence you can find. Says that they're intelligent, friendly, and curious. They have strong hands. They have flexible grips. They can pick up items and operate simple devices. They're small. They live long lives. All of those would make monkeys particularly good service animals. Everything we've read so far has had to do with a person in a difficult situation using an animal, a dog or a monkey, to help them to adapt. I told you at the beginning that this text involved animals adapting also. Paragraph 5 talks about animals adapting, particularly the monkeys. So read paragraph 5. How do the monkeys have to adapt to this situation? It sounds like a lot of training for a monkey to be ready to be a service animal. As I said, this paragraph really focuses on monkeys. Do you think that dogs would have to be trained? that way to be a good service animal? I think they would, because we're asking these animals to do things that they don't do in their natural habitat as their instinct. So they would have to be trained to help these people in these ways. Our final section has paragraph 6 and paragraph 7. Paragraph 6 continues talking about the training that monkeys go through, particularly matching the monkey with the human. So read paragraph 6 about the process between matching the monkey and the human. Again, it sounds like a very important process. It says in the text that they want to ensure good matches. They want to make sure that they have really matched up the monkey and the people really, really well. Do you think that would be the case with dogs? Yes, I think it would. Regardless of the animal, you would want to make sure that that animal has a really good relationship with the human in order for them to really work well together. Finally, in paragraph 7, I'm going to have you read paragraph 7. There's a little bit more evidence that monkeys would make really good service animals. Find that evidence in paragraph 7. It says in paragraph 7 that monkeys prepare food, retrieve objects, scratch itches, and provide companionship, loyalty, and love to their owners. That would show that they would make good service animals. Now that we've read the text, we have found evidence that would support dogs as good service animals, and we found evidence that would support monkeys as good service animals. Remember, this is an opinion writing, so there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, but you have to be able to back it up with evidence. So, have you decided on your opinion? We're going to look at an example of an opinion writing in just a minute, but before we do, I want us to look at some success criteria. Whenever you're doing any kind of writing, it's always good to know what you need to do to make sure it's good, it's successful. So to come up with the success criteria, I actually looked at the state writing rubric. We're already using this for our process writing, typically essays, but it's a good, really rubric for any kind of writing. So I based my success criteria on this rubric. In the focus and organization section, the state requires us to have a good introduction and a closing. So I decided that for our paragraph, we should have a topic sentence and a closing sentence. Also in this section, it says that we need to state and maintain a clear and sophisticated opinion. We've got to make sure we tell our opinion and stick with it all the way through. So that opinion should be in our topic sentence and in our closing sentence. In the development section, the rubric says that we need evidence and that we need to explain it. Our prompt told us we needed 3 reasons. That's going to be our evidence because it's got to come from the text. But then we need to explain the reasons. The text doesn't do that. We have to do that. We have to explain why the reason that the text gave backs up our opinion. In the language section, the state wants us to use precise language and domain-specific vocabulary. That means we want to use really advanced vocabulary words that are specific to this text, that are really important to this text. We're also supposed to use sophisticated and varied transitional words and phrases. So we've got to make sure we have transition words in there that make our paragraph flow. Finally, we've got to have good conventions. So we've got to pay attention to our grammar and our spelling. So now we're going to look at our exemplar. We're going to read it first, and then we're going to make sure that we have that success criteria in this exemplar. Read it with me. Based on helping hands, I think Capuchin monkeys make better service animals than dogs. First of all, monkeys are small. They would be able to fit in places where dogs might not fit. In addition, monkeys live to be 30 or 40 years old. People wouldn't have to go through the trauma of losing their companion and having to wait on another helper. Most importantly, monkeys have hands. Because they have hands, they can pick up objects, cook food, and operate devices. Quadriplegics wouldn't be able to do those things for themselves. and dogs wouldn't be able to help in those ways either. As you can see, Capuchin monkeys are better helpers than dogs. Let's go back to our success criteria. Sorry, wrong way. The first thing we've got to have in our success criteria is a topic and a closing sentence, and they should state our opinion. So in our exemplar, do you see a topic sentence that tells our opinion and tells what we're going to be writing about in this paragraph? Yes, this very first sentence is our topic sentence. This particular author has written the opinion that Capuchin monkeys make better service animals than dogs. So we know that's their opinion. We know that's what this paragraph is going to be about. Do you see a closing sentence? Absolutely. The closing sentence is down here at the end, wraps up the paragraph and restates that opinion. They've used different words. You don't want to use the exact same words, but they've stuck with the same opinion. Capuchin monkeys are better helpers than dogs. All right, let's go back to our success criteria. The next thing we've got to look at is, does our exemplar have 3 reasons from the text, and did they explain them? So, do you see a reason monkeys are better than service animals? It says right here that monkeys are small. That was in the text. Has this author explained why monkeys being small would make them a better service animal than dogs? They did. The very next sentence is explaining that their size would allow them to go places or fit places where a dog might not could go with their owner. Do you see another example of a reason from the text that monkeys would make a better service animal than a dog? It says that monkeys live to be 30 or 40 years old. Does this author explain why that would make monkeys better? It does. The fact that monkeys live a little bit longer would make it easier on the humans because they wouldn't have to go through the sadness of saying goodbye to that helper that they've had and they know them and they've learned them, and then having to wait on a new match to come. Is there another reason that monkeys make better helpers? That's right. It says here, monkeys have hands. Have they explained how monkeys having hands would make them better service animals? They did. They actually gave 3 examples from the text that would make monkeys having hands be beneficial. They can pick up objects, they can cook food, they can operate devices. This author even went on to say that quadriplegics can't do those things for themselves, and dogs can't do those things for the quadriplegic. So that makes the monkeys even more important at that job. Okay, let's go back and look at our success criteria again. We need to look for text-specific vocabulary and transition words. As far as vocabulary, I like how this author used the word Capuchin. It specifies the kind of monkey that we're talking about right here. I also like that they use the word quadriplegics. This text really focused on monkeys helping paralyzed people, particularly quadriplegics. So I like that they use that really good word in there. Do you see any transitional words that this author has used? Absolutely. They use the transitional phrase, first of all, right here to show their very first piece of evidence. Do you see another one? They use the transitional phrase in addition to show that they were adding another reason. They also use the phrase most importantly, and this particular author saved the most convincing reason for the end, and they've shown that by using the transitional word most importantly. There's one more. Do you see it? That's right. In the closing sentence, they have used the phrase as you can see to show that they're wrapping up their paragraph. Good. Let's go back. There's one more thing we got to look at in our success criteria, and that's grammar and spelling. My first tip for you would be, as far as spelling, you've got to make sure that you use your text. If you've used a word from the text, it should be spelled correctly. So go back and double check that. You can also use an online dictionary or an actual dictionary to double check your spelling. As far as grammar, you want to make sure that you watch your capital letters, the beginning of sentences, any kind of proper names, proper nouns, watch your ending punctuation, and then any kind of comma or apostrophe that would go in the middle of your sentence. You can always have an adult in your house go over your grammar and double check that with you. Okay, we have gone over our exemplar now, so let's look at some extension ideas. For those of you that were with us last week and wrote an opinion paragraph of your own, I would like for you to take the success criteria that we've just gone over and analyze your own writing using that success criteria. Find the elements of the success criteria in your paragraph and label them. If you can't find one of those elements in your paragraph, add it. That way your paragraph will have all the components to make it a successful paragraph. For those of you who didn't write one last week or want to do some additional writing, you could do a little bit more research. This text really focused on monkeys. They talked a little bit about service dogs. So you might want to do more research and see if you can find out more about monkeys as service animals or more about service dogs as service animals. There's also some other kind of animals that can be used as service animals. You could look those up too. When you finish your research, you could write a new opinion paragraph with this prompt: which type of service animal you think is best based on your research. Might be very different than the opinion paragraph that we wrote for Helping Hands. Decide on your opinion, which animal's best, and then use your research to back that up. Use your success criteria that we looked at in this video and that's in your packet to make sure that you have all of those elements in your opinion paragraph. Maybe you found some really awesome research that you'd like to share with your family. Do a presentation with your family using a Google slide. Or if you want to be a little bit more artistic, create a poster. Draw the animals that you researched and illustrate how they could help people. Any of these would be great extension ideas to add to your learning. I want to thank you for joining me for this video. I have enjoyed working with you. We've gathered evidence from our text to go with our prompt and help us to answer that prompt. We looked at success criteria and analyzed it with an exemplar text. I challenged you to use the success criteria with your own writing, either with this text or with text from your research. I hope that you've added to your learning about opinion writing and that you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you'll join us for the next video. Take care and have a great day.